filmed for live and subsequent broadcast via the Council's internet site. So by agreeing to by being part of this meeting, the public are consented to being filmed and those images being broadcast on the Council's internet site. I should also remind all present that I have the discretion to terminate or suspend webcasting if, in my opinion, continuing to do so would prejudice the proceedings or that continued webcasting might infringe the right of any individual. We've obviously just checked the translation system. So when a member speaks in Welsh, if you've chosen the English, then it should come through. You should hear Catherine's voice, not the actual. So hopefully that's all working. So the webcast will now begin. Bore da pawb a croeso I cyfarfod cynllunio. Good morning and welcome to the Planning Committee being held on the 14th of April 2021. This meeting is being webcast with the exception of any business that the Council resolves to exclude the press and public because of the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by the Local Government Act 1972. So I'm just going to pass over now to the legal officer, Tim Dillon, who will just run through the declarations of interest.
Members, good morning, members. I trust you can hear me. Good. In relation to declaration of interests, members will be aware of the requirement under the Council's Code of Conduct to declare any personal or prejudicial interest in respect of any business to be considered at today's meeting. Such interest should be declared now or as soon as the councillor affected becomes aware that they have a personal or prejudicial interest in today's business. All members declaring an interest are required to state clearly what the interest is and to advise whether it is a personal interest or indeed a personal and prejudicial interest as defined in the Code of Conduct. Any member declaring a prejudicial interest is required to leave the chamber for the duration of the business and can take no part in the proceedings. Members with a personal interest only may take part in the debate and any vote. If a personal and prejudicial interest is declared today that has not previously been disclosed and recorded, the councillor concerned will be required to complete and sign a declaration of interest form, which is available from the committee support staff here today. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr. I know people do have some declarations of interest, but we'll come to those after apologies. Okay, so first of all, I'm just going to go through apologies. I've had apologies from Councillor Paul Penlington, who may be able to join later. I've also had apologies from Councillors Melvin Mile and Councillor Peter Evans. Do we have, if there's any other apologies, can you just unmute and say, please? This is just for apologies.
And Fedrai ymddiheuro bydd rhaid I mi adael y cyfarfod hanner awr wedi 11.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr. Okay. All right. I think that's it. Okay, so we will go on to agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Cynghorydd Emrys Wyn.
Ie, diolch yn fawr, bore da. Dwi eisoes wedi datgan diddordeb yn y mater hwn mewn cyfarfod blaenorol. Ydy'r datganiad hwnnw'n dal I sefyll heddiw neu oes rhaid I mi datgan eto?
I think if you just say exactly it again, just because it's obviously a new webcast and everything, so if you just say...
Yeah, right, okay. Dwi'n datgan diddordeb gyda rhagfarn gyda hwn yn dilyn cyfarwyddyd oddi wrth swyddog cyfreithiol y sir gan y mod ni'n adnabyddus iawn ar ymgeisydd a hefyd mae'r eiddo o fewn chydig lathenni, wel, 20 llath, 10 ar 20 llath o'r tŷ yma beth bynnag ac mae'r diddordeb I mi yn bellach na bod yn bersonol. Diolch yn fawr.
Can you confirm, I think it's item 5, but can you just...
Item 5, mae'n ddrwg gen I, item 5 ydy o, 73A goch. Okay,
so if you leave the meeting, but then if you then just come back into the waiting room, and then as soon as the item has finished, Rodri will let you back in. Oh, you don't need to do anything, Emily, sorry.
Na I ddifod y camera, na I ddifod y mic, yeah?
No, it's okay. Rodri will put you in the waiting room, so you'll be...
Right, I've got it. Diolch yn fawr.
Okay. Any other declarations of interest? Councillor Alan James?
Yes, possibly I need to declare a personal interest in as much in agenda item 7. I do represent Real Town Council on the Business Improvement District group. I don't have any votes, etc. on that vote, but the current business in the High Street of McDonald's, I assume that individual will be the franchisee on if it gets granted of the new McDonald's. So it's just to declare a personal interest, having discussed it with the with our legal officer.
Okay.
I felt it would be the best thing to do. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Jeanette Chamberlain-Jones?
Yeah, good morning. I will be speaking on item 7 as the ward member. So I would like direction on that, as I will be talking against it.
Yeah, no, that's no problem. When item 7 comes up, after, if officers sometimes come in just to introduce the item, and then it will go to the ward members. Usually it goes to the ward members on committee first, and then the ward members outside committee. But that if you want to do it the other way around amongst yourselves, then that's fine. It doesn't matter. But we will be able to speak first on that. Councillor Tony Thomas, have you got your hand up?
Yes, Chair, thank you very much. Morning all. I need to declare a personal interest on item 7. I know the franchisee of this one, but I don't think he's actually the applicant, but I do know the franchisee, so it is appropriate I declare a personal interest only. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other personal interests? Brian Jones?
Yes, Chair. Again, on item 7, I'll declare a personal interest.
Okay, sorry, I didn't get the nature of it. Sorry, not sure if you said it.
Yeah, it's the same as I sit on the RHYL board. I don't really know the gentleman well, as it's already been stated by Councillor Tony Thomas. He's not the applicant, is he? But just for clarity and to avoid any misdemeanors, confusion, I'll declare the personal interest as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, and I'll declare an interest in agenda item 5. As I think the applicant is the grandmother of a child that is in the same year as my son in school. So it's certainly only a personal interest, but declare it just to make sure there's no confusion on anything. Okay, so if we're all happy with that, if anyone else has got a declaration of interest, then just unmute and speak, please. Otherwise, we will move on. Okay, so we'll move on to agenda item 3, urgent matters as agreed by the chair. I do not have any. So moving on to agenda item number 4, which is the minutes of the last meeting. So it's pages 9 to 14. It's to confirm the accuracy of the minutes of the planning committee meeting held on the 10th of March 2021. So if we just look through those. Okay, so on page 9, we can obviously see that information. Again, just stop me if there's any points as to where you have a comment on any of them. Just unmute and speak. Page 10 was the application 15 Maesbach Llangollen. That was obviously on pages 10 and 11. On page 12, we have application number 6. Page 12, application number 7, which then continued on to page 13 and 14. And then on page 14, application number 8. Okay. Do we have a proposer for those minutes? Councillor Alan James, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Christine Marston, thank you. Again, unless we can assume that we're happy with those, unless anyone wants to speak against those. So if you have any issues with those, please unmute and say. Otherwise, we will confirm them as a true and accurate record. Okay, wonderful. Right. So members should be aware that we've got the blue sheets were sent out last night by Judith Williams. So that should have come through as an email. There is quite a lot of information on some of those. So it's important that you have had access to those. So if you haven't, then obviously just make sure that we're aware of that. Because it obviously goes through the running order of the day. The running order of the day is quite similar to the agenda, apart from the item that's actually in my ward, which doesn't have a public speaker, so that one will be heard at the end of the agenda items. So we'll move on to agenda item 5. So if you just put Emlis in the waiting room for us, please. Okay, diolch yn fawr. Okay, so we're on page 15 of the report. It's agenda item 5. The ward is RHUTHUN. The ward members are councillors Bobby Feely, Emlis Wynne and Hugh Hilditch Roberts. The application number is 02/2020/0811/PF. The proposal is the erection of a detached dwelling, construction of a new vehicular access and associated works. The location is the land at and part garden of 73A Edu Goch, RHUTHUN, LL151RS. Now we do have speakers on this. We have a speaker against and a speaker for. And with our protocols, we have the speaker against that will go first. And just for you to be aware, the speakers, it's 3 minutes that you get to speak. So once you've started speaking, and obviously we can hear you, then the time will start, and I will stop you after 3 minutes exactly if you haven't finished by that time. So it's worth having a watch or something, because usually if you were in chamber, you'd have there'd be a clock by you, and you'd be able to see the time ticking down. So it's worth just having that to make sure you obviously get everything that you need to say to be said. Okay, so the first speaker we have is John Ferguson. So Mr. Ferguson, let me just get my watch set up. So when you are ready, you have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Good morning, councillors and chairman. My objections are as follows. First, as a professional forester of 35 years in Wales, I'm gravely concerned about the future and public visual amenity and the healthy, mature trees that line the footpath along the proposed site. Given the close proximity and height, if planning consent is granted, the trees will be placed under direct threat of future pressure for removal. The proposed property will be in the shade most of the year, and the potential for complaints regarding seasonal changes in the trees would be highly likely. Denbighshire County Council's own supplementary planning guidance notes and reaffirms that at local level, trees and landscaping need to be considered in any proposed development affecting the trees. These trees south of the site boundary afford a significant degree of amenity to the area and form a part of an extended row of trees along the footpath, creating a green corridor which is enjoyed by all residents and appreciated by everyone who encounters them. They also provide valuable wildlife habitat which supports bats, owls, many species of birds, mammals and ancient woodland plants. Denbighshire Council has declared a climate and ecological emergency ratified in February 21 by members, and the Council's constitution amended to reflect this. Part of this is to protect and increase biodiversity and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The trees in our county are part of that story and should be protected. I urge the committee to safeguard these trees from damage and potential destruction and keep them safe for the community of RHUTHUN and the residents of the estate both now and for future generations. 2. If planning had to be approved, the new property would have a detrimental impact on the open character and visual amenity of the estate by virtue of its siting and height in a prominent location within the residential estate. As stated by the planning officer in the report, it's in conflict with criteria 1 of policy RD1 of the Denbighshire Local Development Plan. 3. It is the opinion that the local planning authority, the proposal would result in an unacceptable impact on the residential amenity of the neighbouring property RHYL due to the separation distance between the proposed side elevation and existing habitable room window. 4. The dwellings on the side of the road of the proposed site and throughout the estate are all set back from the highway approximately more than 2.5 metres. The proposed dwelling would be set back 1.7 metres as it's nearest from the highway. It is considered that the front elevation would be too close to the boundary and would detract from the open-fronted nature of the general build form of the estate. This would be out of context and obtrusive from the street scene and would cause detrimental harm to the character of the area. 5. It's considered by RHUTHUN Town Council to be an overdevelopment of the site and would result in a lack of amenity in the neighbouring property.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, and we have a public speaker 4, which is Aled Mosford, who's the son of the applicant. So when you're ready, Mr. Mosford, you will have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Good morning, bore da. I'm Aled Mosford, representing the applicant, MATERION Mosford. I hope you have all received the email I sent on Sunday evening with our supporting evidence and responses to the planning officer and neighbour objections. Apologies for the application being deferred from the previous meeting. We've taken planning officer's advice and changed the original plans to meet the planning needs and also in comparison to other houses on the estate. It is not an overlooked property and there has always been access to the area in terms of low curbing. There are several examples of properties indirectly facing each other throughout this housing estate. The tree root protection objection has been withdrawn due to trial holes being inspected by council's tree officer, and we can confirm that there will be no felling of trees during construction. Therefore, all natural species and their habitat will not be affected. We have considered the 15-metre rule regarding the distance between the existing bungalow and the new build required by the planning officer, but to enable this, it would mean a one-bedroom apartment to be built, which is not in keeping with the rest of the estate and the existing street scene. Therefore, we have made the proposed bungalow smaller and doubled the space from 4 metres to 8 metres between both properties, which will be equally separated with panel fence boarding of 2 metre height, which is in keeping with other properties on the estate, and will provide privacy, social amenity, eliminating the unacceptable impact on the residential amenity of the 2 properties. The bungalow has been reduced in size to address the planning officer's concerns. The whole development site is 220 metres squared, with the bungalow being 65 metres squared. This allows 155 metres squared for external amenity area for the bungalow, inclusive of 2 off-street car parking spaces. We do not consider the position of the proposed bungalow will have a detrimental impact on this housing development. There is currently a shortage of open market housing in the area, and we have seen that the site is an ideal solution to this need. Thank you very much for listening and considering our application. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much. We're just 100% ensuring that we are a quorum for this meeting. So I'm just going to run through the members. If you could just say whether you are here or not, just so because obviously we don't want to start a debate and then not be able to make the decisions. I'm just not sure whether I can see all the members on screen. I've obviously went through my apologies, but I think there's a couple of others that haven't sent in their apologies. Ydy Cynghorydd Mabon ap Gwynfor yma? Councillor Ellie Chard, I can see. Councillor Ann Davis, I can see. Councillor Peter Evans has given us apologies. Councillor Brian Jones, I can see. Councillor Tina Jones, I can see. And Councillor Gwyneth Kensler and Councillor Christine Marston. Councillor Melvin Mouse giving his apologies. Councillor Bob Murray. Right, okay.
I'm here.
Thank you. There we go. Councillor Mervyn Parry, I can see. Councillor Paul Pendington has given his apologies. Councillor Pete Prendergast is here. Yeah, okay, we're absolutely fine now. Okay, and Cynghorydd Emrys Wyn will be obviously here for the other items as well. That's fine. It was just I couldn't see all the ones, so we were just a little bit nervous initially then, but we're absolutely fine.
Excuse me, Joe.
Yes.
I have to leave after the RHYL one because we're saying goodbye to an old resident that's passed away and we're going to wake her off. So okay. I have to leave after the RHYL one.
Okay. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay. Right. So do officers want to come in on this this item? Yeah, there is a bit of information on the blue sheet because it's quite an important one actually, because obviously when it came to committee last time, there were 3 reasons for refusal. The reason 3, the impact to the trees has been removed by officers, and that obviously information is on there. And there also it's mentioned that there's a TPO request dated the 6th of April has been made, and the council's tree consultant is currently considering it. So that's obviously an important change to notice. So if the officers are obviously recommending that this should be refused based on the first two items that are in the report. Okay. If officers are happy, I'll bring in the local members. Okay, so obviously the local member who's on committee isn't here. Councillor Bobby Feely, I can see. Would you like to come in at this point?
Thank you, Mr. Thank you. I'm a bit echoey. Do I need?
If you turn off your camera, turn off your camera.
I'll turn off my camera.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yes.
Is that better? Okay. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, members. And thank you for letting me speak, Mr. Chair. I'm here to support this application for this very modest dwelling on a small plot on a large existing housing estate in RHUTHUN, which incidentally has a very wide roadway through it. The plans have been modified in line with advice, and it is my opinion the proposed dwelling, when complete, would blend into this site in a very satisfactory way. Neither house, as stated, will have a large garden space, but the applicant has all the space she needs, both for herself and the occupier of the new build, to live and park. Currently, the amenity space is completely unused by the applicant. With regard to the trees, just to note that I'm on the climate change board myself and have been known in the past as the tree hugger of the council. So I am very worried also about trees in general. So I am delighted to say that the tree consultant accepts the evidence produced by the applicant, who actually did dig a trench the length of the site and established there are no tree roots at all on the site. And the trees are nicely positioned far on the other side of the footpath on the other side of the site. Furthermore, a precedent, I would say, my opinion is that a precedent has been set on the nearby Castle Park housing estate, where a large dormer bungalow has been built on a very tight plot on the side garden of an existing house, where there is very little amenity space. I do appreciate the difficulties of the planning officers when applications are somewhat marginal, but I believe in this case, the applicants truly have done everything they possibly can to comply with the planning requirements. And on balance, I hope the committee will agree to allow planning for this very modest dwelling. Oh, I didn't know I got a ding dong as local member, Joe.
I think that was somebody else joining the meeting.
Was it?
It wasn't you. You weren't being told to be quiet. No. It was just somebody joining the meeting.
I thought I was being told to be quiet. Okay, well, I've said my piece anyway. Okay, thank you.
I quite like that idea. Actually, I was going to mention actually at the start, obviously public speakers have 3 minutes to address the committee, and because there might be quite a lot of debate on some of the items today, if members should only speak once, shouldn't be coming back and speaking and then saying, I need to speak again, I need to speak again. They should only be speaking once and for a maximum of 5 minutes for members, okay? So we do need to try and keep into that time, otherwise we will, and I know a couple of members have said they need to leave at certain points, otherwise we won't. That 5 minutes should give us a fair enough time for everyone to get their points across, okay? So just be mindful of that, please, as we go through today. Okay, Councillor Mervyn Parry.
Thank you, Joe. Can you hear me with the camera on, or do you want me to camera off?
No, camera on's fine.
Okay. Yeah, I was just looking. I'm glad that the objection number 3 has been taken off by the officers about the trees. This is a site I visited myself, and as we mentioned earlier, there are houses overlooking or across the road for other houses. This is a large estate. There's a large road going up to this site, and work has been done by the applicant to reduce the height of the property to minimise the impact, if there ever was one to start with, and move the siting of the property back so that there's a greater space now between the house next door to it. So there, you know, in my view, plenty of space there between them. And what we have to bear in mind is that if the house wasn't developed here, this site, well, if you pass it now or if you went to see it now, it's not that tidy. And it could, if it wasn't used for any reason, it could be a very untidy piece of land in the middle of an estate. Putting a house here, which we need houses in Denbighshire, small houses, there's a demand for them. And I, again, would second Bobby in supporting this application for putting this development in. Thank you.
Okay, just to confirm, obviously, as Councillor Bobby Feely isn't a member of the committee, would you like to propose that we go against officer's recommendation and grant?
Yes, I will propose to go against officer's recommendation and grant on this application.
And just so the reasons for refusal, I think we've got that from obviously what you were saying. The reason for refusal are that the proposed dwelling would have an adverse visual impact, and you're obviously saying your opinion is that it doesn't do that. So that would be for the reason one, and then reason two, an unacceptable impact on the residential amenity of the neighbouring property. And what you're saying is that changes have been made and they've worked with it, and you don't feel that they would have an acceptable impact on the neighbouring property.
Correct. Thank you, Joe.
Okay. So do we have a seconder for that? Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler?
Yeah, fi'n eilio.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr. Okay. Does anyone else, do we have any other speakers on this? Councillor Christine Marston?
Thank you, Chair. I just want officers to clarify, really. It concerns me that what is left of the garden space on what is proposed and the house next door whose garden originally it is, but it's going to leave both properties with very small gardens. And I know clearly the applicant doesn't use her garden as stated by Councillor Bobby Feely, but it concerns me in the future these properties being created will be left with very small amenity space.
Thank you. Yeah. Is there, I think there probably isn't going to be very many more speakers. I can't see anyone else. Oh, Councillor Tina Jones, and then I'll bring in officers just to get a couple of points.
Thank you. I'd like to second what Christina has said. It's a very, very small plot. It's an odd size plot. The trees are very healthy trees, which would put the property actually into at least 6 months of darkness. The sun wouldn't be able to get to it, to which future occupants would probably ask to have them removed anyway. That's unless a TPO is put on them. I just think it's very small. It's over-intensified, and the original house has already had an extension to it, and I'm against the whole development.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring in the officers now.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just picking up on a couple of points. I might bring Paul Griffin in a moment for some of the technical answers, but I was just picking up on some of the points that were raised by members. Bore da, by the way. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I think that the key issue here really for us is your policies and guidance within the local development plan, because we have to try and as officers adhere to those policies and guidance for you, and it relates to the sort of space around buildings and proximity of new dwellings to existing dwellings. That's why you've got the two reasons for refusal that you've got here. I know Councillor Feely had raised the issue that, you know, that the space for the occupier of the proposed new dwelling would be sufficient for her, but again, we don't deal with individuals when we're dealing with planning applications. We have to deal with the amenity of the site as a whole for future occupiers, as well as those that might be using it straight away. I think another key issue here is that obviously we've removed the reason for refusal in relation to the impact on trees here, but I think it's an important point to note that by the sort of retention of the trees on a fairly cramped site, the overshadowing and feeling of sort of crampness and tightness will be sort of exacerbated. And I think that's one of the issues that's been raised in one of the reasons for refusal there. So I think it just needs to be clear on, whilst we're saying that the trees won't be harmed from this development, that's why we've removed refusal reason number 3, that by the trees staying, that does then also have a bit of an overshadowing impact on the proposed property. I think Councillor Parry also raised this issue of, well, it's going to be potentially a bit of an untidy area of land anyway. We shouldn't really be approving planning applications for development just on the basis that the threat that the site could remain untidy. We've got to deal with it on its merits based on the potential impacts that we've got here. And I think going back to Councillor Christine Marston and Councillor Tina Jones's points, I think they're just reiterating the reasons for refusal that we put on, the 2 reasons for refusal. So I can understand that locally members might feel as though this development is acceptable in this particular location, but I'm just wanting to reiterate that, you know, we do have to try and be consistent in terms of our application with the policies and guidance. It is quite a cramped site, and that's why the 2 reasons have been put on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, I think the local members, I think Hugh Hilditch is here as well. So Councillor Hugh Hilditch Roberts, do you want to come in?
Yeah, diolch, Bore. I just probably want a bit more clarification because, as you know, Paul, the word opinion is in the refusal for all 3 of the original. I just want to understand, because Mr. Ferguson has raised the trees and the future health of the trees. And I just want to understand 2 differences, really. One is, if we leave the site as it is, how does that affect the future and the health of the trees as we stand? And what difference does the building have on those trees? Because I think it was the health in the future and the habitat that was raised, I think. So I just want, because I'm not a tree hugger, sorry, Bobby. And I don't know a great deal about the, you know, the roots and things about trees. And then I just want to understand that in the opinion of the local planning authority, if I take a house on Glastir, for example, and I'm going to take the frontage of houses on Glastir, they don't have parking spaces attached to the houses. So how there may be in other areas of the estate. So how does that differ to, we're putting 2 cars on this one in particular, how does that differ to an application in Glastir, for example, or other estates, I don't know, around Denbighshire, I'm not sure. Because I'm just trying to find, you know, how you work out the definition, as Christine Marsden raised the garden issue, you know, how we work that out and in what matrix, if you like, that breaks it down. And I think, you know, as a local member, I think it's fair to say that you've got an objector and a proposer on literally at the moment, now that the authority have taken number 3 out of the objections, and it is subject to opinion on both sides, isn't it? And I think as a committee, we've heard compelling arguments from both sides today to you know, different views of the site, but again, it's of the opinion. And I just want to understand how Bobby has raised today the Castle Park housing, and I would suggest, knowing that there's actually more garden in this one than there is in that one. So I just want a consistency of what we're saying, because it, you know, to get an opinion, it's very difficult because we're giving conflicting messages out to applicants and objectors. So I'm just wanting to get some sort of consistency across the board, if possible, for me as a local member to understand, because what I'm seeing with my layman's eye is very different to what we're hearing. So I just want a bit of consistency, if we could, please, Paul.
Thank you. Councillor Bobby Field, did you want to come back in just to finish off as well?
It was just Paul's point. It was specifically Paul Mead's point when he talked about consistency. And when he summed up, he didn't actually bring up the point I made about the precedent having been set at Castle Park, which Hugh Hilditch has just brought up, which is fairly, you know, it's the estate on the other side of the road, if you like, a smaller estate. And you did talk about consistency, Paul. And you didn't answer that question, because I do believe a precedent has been set there, which, you know, I don't think we can deny.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring in the officers, and then I think we can go to the vote after that.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Okay, just touching on Councillor Hilditch-Roberts' first point there, I think he sort of asked a question, but then I think he answered it himself anyway in relation to the future health of the trees. That's why we have removed the reason for refusal number 3. What we're saying there is that we don't think the proposed development will have a detrimental impact on the trees now. But what I was saying is by the sort of retention of the trees themselves would have a potential impact on the amenity for the property. So I just wanted to make that clear, that there's two sort of distinct issues here about the health of the trees. We're not saying that the development will impact on the health of the trees negatively, because we've got that within the tree report that we've now had, but we're saying that by the retention of the trees, it could have a detrimental impact on the amenity of the occupiers of that property. I think the issue that we're talking about here, both Councillor Feely and Councillor Hilditch-Roberts, is whilst I use the word consistency, what we try and do as offices is try and consistently apply your policies and guidance, but what we can never get, as you will all know, is a consistent type of development proposal and a consistent site. Every site is different. Every site has its own characteristics. It has its own amenity, its own orientation. And therefore, whilst we can consistently try and apply the policies, there may be some instances, because of topography, distances, light, all those sorts of factors come into play, that we get a decision that's made on a particular site that members might feel is acceptable, or on another site isn't acceptable. So I understand here from a member's perspective, especially a local member, they might be looking at this particular site and thinking, what's the harm? You know, we're perfectly happy with the dwelling on this site, and that's fair enough. Local members, it's a democratic process. All the officers can do is we can try and consistently apply our policies and guidance and put that into a report for you, which is what we've tried to do here today. But if you have a different opinion on it, which obviously we've got a proposer and a seconder for that's perfectly reasonable. All we're saying is that we're presenting you with the issues, the amenity of the future occupiers, not just the current occupier, but the future occupiers of this site. It's cramped, it feels as though it's too small, it will have an impact on the neighbouring property, and that's why we've recommended for those 2 reasons for refusal. But you can have a different opinion. That's perfectly reasonable as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's why we're at Planning Committee.
To
have these
please? Yeah.
Go on, Hugh. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, Paul, it's not my opinion. I'm struggling with I think Mr. Ferguson's giving a compelling argument about the trees, okay? And then on one hand, you're saying that Denbighshire are now taking that away, yeah, because it's no longer an objection. But if the property is built, it will have an effect on the property. So I don't understand how we can withdraw something and then put it back. So it either has an effect on the property or it doesn't, this is what I don't understand. Because what you're saying is you're taking it away from the refusal now, but actually, if you build a property there, it'll have an effect on it. And that's what,
you're stupid.
Well, no, that was the amenities. That's what you said. So I'm struggling to understand are the trees affecting the property or not.
There's 2 issues here, Councillor Hilditch-Roberts. The first one is if you're looking to build a property on a particular site, and there's trees or a number of trees in proximity to that site, and those roots might be impacted upon the development, i.e. you start building the house, you cut through tree roots, the trees die, that's having a negative impact on the trees. So that's one issue. What we've done here is, and the applicant has done, he's provided further information in relation to the tree roots. And what the report is saying is that you can safely build a property here without detriment to the trees. So the trees won't die on the basis that the property is going to be built. There may be, the other element of it, however, is that what we're saying as officers is because of the proximity of the trees to the property, the trees will remain, the dwelling can safely be built, but the trees will then potentially have a detrimental impact on the property itself, i.e. it's going to cause a loss of light, there'll be overshadowing, they're very close to the property. So they're 2 separate issues. one's the health of the trees, one's the health of the human beings that are going to be living in the property that are really close to the trees. I hope that's clear.
Yep, thank you. Okay, Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler, did you want to come in? Did you have your hand raised? And then we will go to the vote. But you, as you seconded it, I'll let you speak.
Oh, diolch yn fawr iawn i chdi. Yes, just to confirm, the trees are not on this site, are they?
No.
And I think, personally, I do give weight to the opinion of local members because they know this site well. I must admit I don't know it. And there's been talk about future occupiers. I think that is a red herring, and I don't think it's relevant at all here, future occupiers, because future occupiers will look at the building when if they are looking to purchase a building, and then they will make their decision. So the fact that the trees may be blocking light, that's their choice. And so I don't think that we should be thinking about future occupiers.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you for that. Right. I've had a good debate about that. Obviously, if you joined the meeting late, I know a couple of people are having some technical difficulties, then you obviously have to make a decision as to whether you take part in the vote or whether you abstain. Just to remind you about that. And we'll go through the voting. Again, it's in alphabetical order. If I miss your name out by the time we get after Councillor Mark Young and I haven't said your name, then you need to shout out. It does happen from time to time. Okay. Councillor Ellie Chart. So again, let me just say, so we're going to go, it's either for, which is to grant, which is against officer recommendation, or we're going against the planning application, which would be in accordance with officer recommendation, or to abstain. Okay, so they're the three options that we have. So nice and clear. Councillor Ellie Chard.
To grant.
Thank you. Councillor Ann Davis.
For.
For. Thank you. Councillor Alan James.
Grant.
Thank you. Councillor Brian Jones.
For.
Councillor Tina Jones.
Against.
Councillor Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler.
Obliged.
Councillor Christine Marston.
Against.
Councillor Bob Murray.
For.
Councillor Mervyn Parry.
For.
Councillor Pete Prendergast.
For.
Councillor Peter Scott.
Against.
Councillor Tony Thomas.
Against.
Councillor Julian Thompson Hill.
Against.
Councillor Joe Welch, I'm for, and Councillor Mark Young.
For.
Thank you. Okay, we'll just count up the votes. 10 and 5. Yeah. So we've got 10 votes for the application. We have got 5 votes against the application. Therefore, that application has been granted against officer recommendation. Okay, and for the reasons noted by Councillor Mervyn Parry, who was the proposer for that. Okay, thank you, members. All right, we are moving on. We're not going on to agenda item 6 because that's going to come at the end of the agenda. We're moving on to agenda item number 7, which is on page 75 of our reports. The ward is RHYL South. The ward members are Councillors Ellie Chard and Jeanette Chamberlain-Jones. The application number is 45/2019/0592/PF. The proposal is the erection of a restaurant with drive-through facility, car parking, customers water displays, child's play area, landscaping and associated works, and formation of new vehicular access. The location is the land at the former Crown Bard Fort DERWEN RHYL LL18 2RL. There is some late information on the blue sheet, on the email that you had. Officer recommendation is to grant this. We do have a public speaker, and the public speaker will come first before any members of the committee speak. So the public speaker for is Phil Usherwood. So as I said, to those on the first agenda item. You will have 3 minutes to address the committee. We are very strict on the 3 minutes, so it's worth having a watch or a clock or something to nearby, so you can actually time yourself as the time ticks down. Okay, because you will be stopped after 3 minutes. Okay. Okay. Bob Murray, you've got your hand raised. Is there something you wanted to say before we had this item? Can't. You're on mute, Bob. If you don't have anything to say, it's fine. Just.
Sorry. Yeah, I'll speak after Janet Chamberlain-Jones and Ellie have spoken. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. So Phil Usherwood. So when you're ready, if you've got 3 minutes, if you would like to address the committee.
Thank you and good morning. My name is Philip. I'm a senior acquisition surveyor for McDonald's, responsible for purchasing new sites. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. This application was lodged almost 2 years ago, and due to the vast number of consultees and the consequent numerous revisions, I can say this is one of the most well-considered schemes I've had the pleasure of working on. The valuable input from both the statutory consultees and the local ward councillors have ensured that almost every element has been refined since our original submission in 2019. I would like to use this time to highlight a handful of the many positive improvements made, which has ultimately led to no objections from statutory consultees, and therefore has resulted in this proposal being recommended for approval today. Having witnessed seasonal flooding in and around this area, this proposal makes significant improvements to the site. Due to a flow control chamber, the water discharge creates almost an 80% betterment to the existing hard standing. The imposed 4-metre maintenance strip, a new flood basin, as designed and approved in conjunction with Natural Resource Wales, will undoubtedly make a positive difference. Noise generation is always an emotive subject, but with the positioning of the drive-through lane against the busy roundabout and installing low noise plant equipment, the impact on local residents will be minimal. During meetings with local members on site and having to shout over the traffic noise to make ourselves heard, I can concur with the officer's report that noise generated specifically from the site is unlikely to adversely impact the local residents. In order to develop this brownfield site, unfortunately, some of the trees have to be removed to make way for the flood mitigation measures and the proposed development. Our team has worked closely with the ecologist and the tree officer and local stakeholders to ensure that trees are added back across the scheme to replace some of those lost. It is also worth noting that as per the report, the majority of trees are in poor condition with no individual species of merit. Highways have also welcomed our improvements to the roundabout and have suggested that our development will not have an unacceptable impact on the junction due to the realignment of some of the splitter islands and the addition of filter lanes. And finally, litter. Litter again is an equally emotive subject. I can confirm the site benefits from 7 bins, and all of our teams conduct numerous daily litter picks within 150 metres of the restaurant, picking up all rubbish, not just that has originated from this proposal. McDonald's also invests heavily in such schemes as Keep Wales Tidy to promote better behaviour. Having worked closely alongside local councillors and planning officers, we are pleased with the officer's recommendation for approval, and we trust you can now support this application. Should it be required, I'm happy to answer any questions raised. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do officers want to come in before anyone? No, I mean, obviously, as we all know, this is it is a long report, and I would urge members to obviously focus on the planning. We're at a planning committee meeting, and focus on the valid planning material considerations for this site, whichever way you want to speak about it, and that's what we're discussing today. We're discussing a planning application. So it's really, really important that we focus on that. Otherwise, we're going to end up getting very, very confused as to what we're actually considering. Okay, so it's really, really important that we do that so we can have a really fair and open debate about the valid planning reasons. Okay, so the local members are Councillor Ellie Chard and Councillor Jeanette Chamberlain-Jones. Either of you, it doesn't matter to me who goes first. You may have decided. Councillor Ellie Chard, are you going to go first?
Yes,
I'm all ready, everybody. And I would have liked to been in RHYL today, standing up, but I'm sitting at home in sunny RHYL. So I'll crack on because I've got me 5 minutes. This pleasant part of RHYL is a quiet part of the town, and the residents enjoying the vista from their gardens. We should also note that across the road from this site are literally hundreds of homes. And what will they get if this application is approved? There will be 11 6-metre light poles, plus 1 7-metre high McDonald's sign. Plus, remember, their house prices will decrease. The residents have the additional noise and light pollution from those light poles. The
breaking up a bit, Ellie. You might just turn off your video.
Picture,
We've heard it all. You don't need to start again, but just continue.
I'll stop my video, sorry. Right, where was I? For years now, the trees in Ford Derwin have served as a barrier from the lights and noise from the nearby retail park. There are various trees in this copse, ensuring that the residents from being disturbed, relaxing in their gardens. We also have flowers as wild clover and poppies in the copse. Plus, in the ecology report, I read there were 3 unidentified bats within 1 kilometre of the site. The roads around this proposed plot form an integral part of the infrastructure in RHYL South, but my largest concern is the exit entrance, and what if residents were walking along the west side of RHUTHUN Road and wanted to cross the junction to get to the nearby retail park, as vehicles could be crossing over from the drive-through restaurant and not see me. Plus, walking from RHYL, having used the pedestrian crossing, I then have to take a chance to cross with the exit, watching out for vehicles coming off the roundabout and also looking out for vehicles leaving the drive-through as well. This is an important fact I need to make. Derwin Drive, off RHUTHUN Road, which is the first junction as you go into Ford Derwin, will become a rat run as drivers will try and avoid the traffic build-up on RHUTHUN Road upon going down to the roundabout to leave the town. I should point out that Derwin Drive is very close to the entrance to the McDonald's site, as you can see on the map. Some may think this is a good way of accessing the entrance to McDonald's quicker, which will cause lots of traffic issues not thought of in the report. I must mention I have a great concern about the emergency services gaining access to all the roads. Then we have the huge national concern of obesity in all age groups. Residents plus visitors, the business, eating far too many carbohydrates, bringing on early diagnosis of type 2 diabetes in the under 25s and maybe even school children. This is a huge issue, and actually does our town actually need 2 McDonald's, as we also have 3 national eateries, cafes and pubs in nearby RHYL, and the pizza business in the 30-year-old Clwyd retail park, 200 yards up the road. Plus, we have a long-established public house just across the road from the proposed site, named the Derwin. I'm concerned that the company will be litter picking, and but from the restaurant, I for one have seen packaging along the old DYSERTH road coming out of RHYL, leading out of our town to the many lanes to our villages, and I feel it's another knock on our environment. So if this application was granted, I do hope the figure of 100 metres quoted could be extended. We also must remember this is a quieter part of our lovely town with safe walking routes around the town plus cycling routes to the rest of the Vale of Clwyd. This application is designed for vehicles and the fast food industry rather than the trend towards a healthier well-being for us all. I will state I am against the application for the following reasons: the entrance exit onto Ford Derwin, the well-being of residents due to the increase of traffic, loss of wildlife and the future obesity in our community, especially as there's already a restaurant in our town high street, and we need to keep our high streets vibrant, bustling with life. I will conclude by saying that our Croeso I RHYL sign will be irrelevant if this application was granted, as it would mean welcome to McDonald's. Thank you.
Oh, look at that. I timed that as well. It was 5 minutes bang on.
Hello.
Councillor Jeanette Chamberlain-Jones.
Good morning. I'm just on.
Yes, thank you. And
planning
I
at the
think
moment.
basically Ellie has covered most of the points, and I will be talking in a different way. And to avoid the buffeting, I will turn off my screen now, if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for letting me join today. As many residents have sent objections but are unable to attend this virtual meeting, I speak with their worries and hope you can imagine them here beside me today. I want you to think about the pleasant place that we now live, a place most of the time quiet, apart from, sorry? Was there feedback then, sorry?
No, carry on.
Most of the time, this is a quiet place to live. But this, I'm afraid, will soon change because of this close proximity of this McDonald's to the residents. They'll soon be hearing this sort of voices across. The 2 Big Macs and 1 cheeseburger, 1 large fries and a Happy Meal. It's that close. Yes, people's voices echoing across our once quiet neighbourhood, and all this till very, very late at night. The constant stream of traffic going in and out of this narrow, busy road, the car fumes polluting the air, while the queues for a meal full of calories that can cause ill health such as diabetes and heart conditions, a drain on our NHS. We are a council dedicated to promoting good health in our schools and social care. So should we be promoting another fast food chain when so many are in the vicinity? But what about our health? Breathing in car fumes, sleep deprivation caused by constant traffic, noise and light pollution. And what about our homes? Will we ever be able to sell them when they're next to such a large eatery? Now, there are major reasons this development should not take place in this location. Traffic buildup is a major concern as the entrance is very near the roundabout on the main road into RHYL. With the junction of Brincunning Road and Ford Derwin, I can see the build-up way past the Clwyd Retail Park entrance. The car boot entrance is also opposite the retail park on the roundabout and already causes tailbacks. So what happens when the emergency services need to get through? Could lives be lost? Yes, we are aware this brings more jobs into the area, and of course we all want that. But there are other more appropriate sites, as DCC have purchased and demolished buildings to attract investors to this area. And let's not forget the Marina Quay. When I asked why this site was not considered, they said it was too close to the one they already had in RHYL High Street, which does bring me to the litter, because it cost Denbighshire thousands of pounds clearing the excessive amount of litter from RHYL High Street. And the litter generated from this new application will cost just as much due to discarded waste thrown from car windows. And this will go right throughout the area. And flooding, you all know this area is prone to flooding, and I sent you recent pictures of the flooding, and I see no real reason why the applicant's flood pool thing will make any difference to that. When water starts, it won't stop, believe me on that. Cutting down these large mature trees will not help the situation, and the ones they want to replace with will take years to be strong enough to hold a bird's nest. These mature trees are the home of many types of birds and insects. They are also vital shields, as Ellie said, that keep and absorb the noise pollution from our homes as they separate us from the Clwyd Retail Park. Many already have TPOs. Well, it's said by the experts, they're not really in good condition. Well, I personally am not in good condition, but I'm breathing. And so are these wonderful, useful, mature trees. which should be protected in line with our government ecology and environmental. We've just had seminars on that. So we must remember that trees play a very important part, and this is a lot of trees they're going to cut down. So to summarise, I ask you to object to the planning application, as RHYL Town Council, many residents, our AM and MP, and I ask you to take all these into account when making your decision. To object makes good sense, especially for future generations. And I ask you to really seriously consider rejection of this application, which is in the wrong place. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have got a few hands up that I can see. Councillor Ellie-Child did actually propose that we refuse this on 2 items. So if I just get a seconder for that from the committee. Councillor Mark Young, are you suggesting we second that? Yep. Okay, so that's seconded by Councillor Mark Young for those reasons. If we need any more details on those reasons in a little bit, we can go into that. We've got a few speakers. I'll just bring in the officers at this point, and then I know I can see Pete Prendergast, you got your hand up. I'll make sure you're heard as well. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm just going to raise a couple of sort of important points before we go further into the debate, really, for members' benefit here. Obviously, hearing the 2 local members passionately talking about the application, and I can fully appreciate the concerns that they've got, and obviously they're representing their communities and representing the residents that live in the area, and that's perfectly fine. I'm here to do my job, obviously, and try and give a sort of balanced view from a planning perspective, and I never like to use the dirty word that is a planning appeal, but you know, I am bound to try and guide members in relation to this, because when you're making a planning decision at planning committee, as the chairman said at the very start, you've got to stick to the material planning issues, and you've got to have an evidence base for putting together reasons for refusal. So just a couple of quick points from me, really, just in terms of this particular site, just for you to note. Obviously, a couple of times it was mentioned there that it's a quiet part of RHYL. I think factually, you know, I've got to point out to you that it is close to an existing and quite busy retail park, and that the site was previously used as a pub and restaurant for many years, in close proximity to an existing pub and restaurant across the road, which I think the 2 local members did emphasise. So I just want to, you know, try and make sure that members have got the picture in their heads that it's not out in the countryside, it's on the entrance into RHYL, with a retail park next to it, and various other uses, albeit, you know, there's a predominantly large residential area nearby as well. So I want to give that balanced view on that. The other issues that have been raised there around house prices and will people be able to sell their properties, etc. Again, need to emphasise not a material planning consideration. So I just want to make that particular point clear. The other issue that I really think you need to draw your attention to as well when you're trying to pull together an evidence base here for maybe supporting the local members with their concerns, is that all the technical consultees that we've gone to, as the speaker pointed out, have raised no objections. We've got Mike Parker here from a highways perspective, so if there are any sort of specific questions that people want to ask around the access and parking and highway safety, then Mike can answer those. But obviously we have gone to Natural Resources Wales on things like flooding. We've gone to our ecologist and our tree officer, etc. We've got no objections from those people, and in some ways it's been emphasised that there could be betterment here. So I just want to give you that initial balance view. Obviously you can go into further debate now and maybe have some further questions, but I just thought it was important to just try and get those points across as early as possible. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, I have got a number of speakers. If you have raised your hand just virtually, I can see that. So that's the best way of doing it. Councillor Anne Davis, I'll add you to the bottom of the list as I've just seen your hand raised physically there. Councillor Bob Murray first, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a reference to Mr. Paul Mead. Young Paul, the pub and the restaurant will never be as busy as a McDonald's will be. That pub was never the busiest, and I can guarantee you the McDonald's will be 10 times as busy. There's two things I'd like to ask the officers. I still have concerns with the flooding aspect. Need reassurance from officers that everything's been covered, that there will be no flooding there. The second part of my question is road layout. Have the markets and car routes been taken into consideration? Because I can remember when we did it in Prestatyn, we had a heck of a lot of trouble because the markets weren't taken into consideration. And I've been on these two markets and I've seen people crossing that road every way and which way to get over to the other shops and things. It's a great concern to me, and I will be voting against it with my fellow councillors. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Tony Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. I'll turn my video off because and the sound quality this morning has been a bit disappointing, really, at times. So I'm going to turn my video off. Okay. Okay. This is a brownfield site with a previous business on site, and I gather the proposal will be using existing entrances and exits of that business. Our flood officers have confirmed that this new development will make the road flooding better, but obviously not perfect. You can have flash flooding anywhere, even in my ward in East RHYL. The trees on site are not good quality, and the Denbighshire tree officer has agreed that they can be cut down and the proposed mitigation will be beneficial to the area. Traffic in the area is a problem, particularly 8:15 onwards and around 5 p.m. But this is Vale Road and Brincunnan, not really an existing problem on Ford Derwin, where the entrance exit will be, and they are doing some mitigation to the roundabout on it. The proposal will increase the average traffic flow for sure, but will not be an added burden at peak times. Our highways officer is happy with the proposal. The applicants are a responsible employer, paying more than the minimum wage and sponsor Keep Wales Tidy, and they do their own litter pick within their vicinity. To me, the creation of 65 equivalent full-time jobs, which will be mostly for young people in the area, will probably give youngsters in some of our most deprived wards a chance to put a bit of money in their back pockets. What a difference that could make to the lives of these youngsters. So summarising, this is a proposal on a brownfield site. It carries the recommendations of all our specialist officers, highways, flooding, tree, ecology, and they all, and of course, our officers, it meets all their requirements. So, as you can probably gather, I would like to propose that this proposal is accepted. Thank you.
Okay, so you want to propose that we grant in accordance with officer recommendation. Does somebody want to second that? Councillor Peter Scott, thank you. Okay, there's no more info needed on that, as obviously that's what officer's recommendation is for. Okay, so I've got Councillor, I know Councillor Brian Blakely would like to speak, so I'll bring him in at the end after the members of the committee have spoken. Councillor Pete Prendergast.
Thank you, Chair. My main concern with this development is to do with traffic. I won't repeat everything that's been said by fellow councillors, apart from saying the last 3 days, Fourth Derwin, at 8:45 in the morning, 12 cars waiting to pull out. Fourth Derwin the following day, 6 cars waiting to pull out. Last night at 5:30, 9 cars waiting to pull out. Abergele, at the roundabout there were 12 cars in the car park queuing to order their meals and 6 cars on the roundabout. I just find it incredible that we propose to allow an entrance and exit onto the Fourth Derwin Road. I remain very concerned as to the danger for pedestrians and vehicles, and I'm sure there will be something serious happening on Fourth Derwin if we allow this development to go ahead. There is plenty of room on the retail park. There's already a service road and a car park behind this site on the retail park. Okay, we'll probably have to pay the owners of the retail park to use that service road, etc. Do you know what? The amount of money they're going to take, it's safer for the pedestrians. So I will be voting against this development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. We understand those reasons. Councillor Brian Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm just looking for some meat on the bone, if you like, and a bit of a clarification from the officers, the relevant officers. I've read the report. Please could one of the officers put some more meat on the bone, reference 4.2.7, the Wellbeing Future Generation Act 2015. What consideration has been given to the residents, and in particular the 3 houses that are next door to the Ford Derwin? What consideration has been given to those 3 properties in particular? The report just covers a multitude of sins. To Mike Parker, could he give us a précis, you know, of the highway layout, of the highway condition, and what his expert view is on it? And again, he accepts it's all there in the report, but I'd like to hear it from him if he could. And finally, on the flood risk aspect of this application, there's already an issue with flood risk on Ford Derwin that's been there for many years, and the local members have fought the cause on that. And now actually, as we sit here today, that flood risk problem is at the top of the list on the Denbighshire Flood Risk Management virtually, and there is a project there, there's a study gone on, and there is going to be work done there. But the question is, in relation to this application, have the dots been joined up with the flood risk management scheme on Ford Derwin with the flood risk and drainage aspects of this application? So three points there. I'm just looking for some verbal clarification of what's in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'll bring in the officers now. I know I have got speakers still to come, but there's obviously quite a few points just been raised by the first few speakers. Okay, so officers.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll just run through the members' points as they were uttered. Obviously, thanking Councillor Murray for calling me young again, which is always a bonus. I think, yeah, it's accepted that maybe the existing or the previous pub and restaurant may not have being as busy as potentially the proposed McDonald's restaurant. I've just wanted to emphasise the point really that the 2 businesses fall under the same use class, i.e., you know, if the pub was still there, and albeit it had closed down, it could have opened up again and started operating, and it could have been as busy or busier without the benefit of planning permission. So I just wanted to emphasise that point really. A few members have raised this issue about flood risk, and I think it's important to note that obviously as part of the application, the applicant is proposing mitigation and betterment in relation to the existing sort of surface water drainage system that's there. So really the holding tanks and the structures that they're putting on the site are designed to improve the current situation that's there. I think in answer to Councillor Brian Jones's point, whether there's a separate scheme then, corporate scheme that's looking at drainage on roads nearby, then clearly, I mean, they're 2 separate things, but if both are trying to create betterment, then that's the issue for you today, really. Again, going back to my original point here, if you're sat in a planning appeal further down the line and there's a challenge there to say you've refused this planning permission on flood risk and drainage, what evidence have you got to suggest that this development is going to make it worse? All the technical evidence that we've got with this application is saying that it isn't going to make it worse. In fact, it's actually going to make it better. So just you need to really keep that point clear in your heads when you're making the decision on the application in relation to flood risk. Councillor Brian Jones raised this issue there about future generations. And obviously all planning decisions that you make now at planning committee and all planning decisions that we make as officers under delegated powers, we have to make reference to the Future Generations Act. And there's various other pieces of legislation that officers also have to have regard to when they're making their recommendations. And it's in its broadest sense, it's looking at whether a proposed development is going to have negative impacts both now and in the future on residential amenity and the lives of people living in the area. And again, that has to be balanced up with what I've said to you before around the existing use of the site, the nature of the development, and fundamentally, members, every planning decision that you always make here at Planning Committee is going to have economic considerations, i.e. economic benefits versus environmental considerations. And that all has a bearing on the well-being of future generations. You know, if there's no employment, if there's no economy, that's going to have a negative impact, and balance that against potentially the environmental considerations and what impact that will have on future generations as well. So it is taken into account, Councillor Jones. I think the other important point that I picked up from some of the members' points there, I think it was Councillor Prendergast, that there may be sites elsewhere, there may be space on the retail park. We can't consider that today. You've got to decide whether this application on its merits on this site is acceptable or not. So please make sure that you're focusing on the issues with this site and what the potential impacts are. I think the other key issues are all around highways. So I think it is now time for Mr. Parker to clear his throat and get ready to speak. So I'll hand you over to Mike Parker. Thank you.
Morning. Just some clarity on applications. Normally, myself or one of my team would look at all the information and make a recommendation to the Planning Committee. However, in this case, we've gone to for some clarity on certain information. Mike Jones, my manager, the Traffic Road Safety manager, has looked at this himself to give us some advice and help with it to make a recommendation. So that's just for some clarity to start with. I can understand the concerns from the local member and the residents locally. As part of the application, it is proposed to improve the approach to the roundabout, to provide 2 lanes in addition to minor alterations to the road markings on the approaches to the roundabout from the A525 North and Bryn Cunning Road. With the improvements proposed to the existing highway approaches to the roundabout, the transport modelling, which has been assessed, shows a proposal would allow the roundabout to operate with sufficient capacity. The proposed access points will be via FFORDD DERWEN. Speed surveys have been undertaken and the visibility displays demonstrate compliance with the visibility standards set out in Annex B of Technical Advice Note 18 and are considered acceptable. We have had a stage 1 safety audit has been carried out on the initial scheme, which is part of the process, and that didn't identify any considerable problems. I think, what was the question from Councillor Murray? The road layout, have the market and car boots been taken into consideration? They would have been made aware of them when they were doing the modelling and doing the transport assessments. Having regard to the detailed assessments and all of the information provided in relation to the capacity of the highway network, accessibility, site access and site layout, there are no highway grounds to object to the proposed development that could be sustained at a future planning appeal. That is our advice as professional officers, but obviously as members, you are here to make that decision for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got quite a lot more few speakers on this item. So if we can just ensure, I'll bring in the local members at the end. So I can see you both raised your hand. I'll bring you in right at the end. If we can just ensure now that obviously a lot of points have been raised about different things. Can we just make sure that from now on we don't repeat any of the points said, just so we can move through it. Obviously, if you've got new points to be making, that's absolutely fine. Next, I've got Councillor.
Sorry to butt in, Chair.
Yeah.
Sorry to butt in. I have to go now, but could I register that I am against it, please?
You can register it, but you can't vote. It won't count as a vote because obviously you haven't heard the full debate. Sorry.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Councillor Ann Davis. We can't hear you, Anne. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'd also like to raise the flood mitigation measures here. It does say here that the raised finished floor level will be raised considerably. I would compare this to the Aldi supermarket in RHUTHUN. When that was granted, I don't believe there were any mention of raising the building, but when they started on the new build, they realised that they did have to raise it. Now, looking at the pictures that we've been presented with by the applicant, it doesn't show any steps going into the building. So I'm not sure how high this building is going to be, because if it is going to be raised 300 above the flood line, it's going to tower against the bungalows opposite. I'd also like to comment on the Health and Wellbeing Act 2015 and how much attention has been given to this. You know, we're here to serve our residents and to listen to them and to take on board how it is going to affect their future lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Officers, can you just say how compared to the old building that's just been demolished, can you say what the size comparison is, and whether it's being raised as well? That'd be useful.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The existing building that was on the site, as I said before, it was a pub restaurant building that was over 2 floors. So there was living accommodation that was above it as well. So it was effectively a 2-storey pitched roof building that was on the site previously. The proposed McDonald's building isn't going to be a 2-storey building. It will be single-storey. But what they are doing, as Councillor Ann Davis has said, in order to deal with some of the potential flood risk issues, is to raise the ground level. Obviously, they wouldn't necessarily put steps up to the building, but they'll raise the ground level. And I think it's only around about 400 millimetres that they're going to be doing that. So it's not a significant amount of ground level increase on this particular site. And obviously, we have assessed the potential impact in terms of the overall height of the building, the proximity of the building to neighbouring properties, the fact that it is there is a retail part behind the site as well. So in terms of the siting design, the height of the proposed building, having regard to what was on the site previously, we don't feel as officers it's going to have a negative impact either on visual amenity or residential amenity. So I think it's just important to point out what was there before and what was there now.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mark Young.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a clarification. So on the floods, although you're saying it's all okay, can you confirm has the SAB been signed off fully? So there's a difference with it pending than being told it's okay. So can you confirm that for members? And the other one is on health, and a lot of local authorities across the UK now cap the amount of takeaways. And I've just had a look through, and the number seems to be no more than 5% in a town or village. And the impact of health, especially during the last year, we all need to be healthier. So how many McDonald's is healthy or takeaways? And have you looked into that? Because we do have a duty of care as a local authority and as members. So what to figure are we with numbers for takeaways in this area, please? And have you looked into it? Thank you.
Thank you. Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler.
Diolch. Can you remind me what the reasons for rejection currently are? Because I assume that we cannot use flood risk because of the mitigation measures, and we can't use highways. I was rather concerned listening to Paul Mead, putting economic development or the economic benefits against the environment. We have declared an emergency where the environment is concerned. And we cannot afford any longer to pit the possible gain of some jobs against the environment. And a very recent report from the Woodland Trust cites that we are in a crisis where mature trees are concerned. So I would suggest that one of the reasons for refusal would be the Future Generations Act, the environmental crisis, and the recent report from the Woodland Trust.
Okay, thank you. We can put that to the proposer and seconder in a little while. Let me just go through. Okay, I'm going to go outside the committee now. I've got Councillor Brian Blakely, who's been waiting patiently. We can't hear you, Brian. We can't see you either. There we are. See you now. You've been waiting all this time. You went away for a minute and then it was your turn. There you go.
I just nipped out to fix the paperwork up. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you for allowing me to come in. Yeah, I'm not just talking about it as a councillor, I'm also talking as a local resident. I noticed Pete Prendergast didn't say that Pete actually lived on Brincoming Road. And he knows as well as I do the problems we're having on Brincoming Road. And especially the traffic that we've had for many years, which has caused problems. This traffic from actually going onto Brincoming Road goes onto my ward, given it to Colin Drive and onto Secklewellan Road and onto Pennamite Avenue. And we've had problems with Pennamite Avenue onto DYSERTH Road for many years. And especially now that we've got the Aberkinsley site built, phase 1, 2 and 3, and we're talking about putting another 103 houses on the back of RHUTHUN Park. And the amount of traffic is coming from there. Every morning, over the past few years, I've taken my wife to work. She's retired now. 7 to 8 o'clock in the morning at the bottom of RHUTHUN Park, especially on a Saturday and Sunday when the car boot's on. And I've sat at the bottom of Brincoming Road trying to get onto that roundabout for up to 20 minutes because of the traffic. It's been absolutely disgusting having to wait there trying to get my wife to work. And then afternoon when the schools are on from the traffic on at the roundabout, 4, 5, 6 o'clock, the traffic build up, as Pete says, onto or DERWEN, the junction of Brincoming Road, and that you just can't move. People going shopping, people coming in from town, coming from the local schools. It's actually it's gridlocked. The whole lot is gridlocked. You can talk about there's no problems with traffic. My God, the problems we've had at the end of Pennamite Avenue over the years, and now with all these extra properties being built on our green belt here, the boot sales causes problems. You know, there is a traffic problem, a major traffic problem, and if this McDonald's is allowed to go ahead, especially where they've got the drive-in and the drive-out directly onto the roundabout, there is going to be a major problem, and there is going to be major gridlock morning and afternoon there. We're looking at this moment in time at the pollution outside our school and Uscol Culelling, shutting the roads off in the morning from 8:30 till 9:30, and in the afternoon from 2:30 to 3:30, where traffic can't go through there. You know, not only is that going to cause a problem, also we're looking at pollution. You know, we've just gone through this APSE training talking about carbon literacy, pollution and everything else. And yet we're going to allow them to put a McDonald's there with all the extra vehicles that's going to be pumping out all this rubbish into the air. The local residents in that area are going to suffer from extra pollution. Think of our children. Think about what's going to happen in the future. And it's not good turning around to me and saying to me, as a resident from 93 that lives on Brincoming Road, that's not going to cause a problem. We have a problem now. And if they put a McDonald's there, it's going to be a major problem. And by cutting the trees down, those trees, there's been nesting birds, crows in those trees since I came here in 93. The trees are full of nests. And are you telling me that under biodiversity, you're going to be happily cut these trees down, you know, and we talked about bats as well. And then McDonald's are then putting a building in that's going to be raised higher, but then they say there's no problem with pollution. You know, I'll leave it at that, Chair. That's the way I feel as a councillor and a resident. It's going to affect us no end, and it's certainly going to put extra pressure on the South East Ward of RHYL with this if this is allowed to go ahead. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to come in.
That's okay, thank you. I'll bring in the local members and then, oh no, I'll bring in the officers first, sorry, and then then I'll bring in the local members, and then we're going to end the debate there, because I think we are just starting to go over the same points. I think we've got a really good understanding of where we're at as committee members, how we're making the vote. So we'll go to the officers. I'll just bring in the local members briefly, and then we'll go to the vote after that.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, there was just a couple of outstanding queries, I think, before we go back to the local members that Councillor Mark Young had raised. So I thought I'd better try and get them in first. The question in relation to the sustainable urban drainage process, the report does sort of specify that they're pretty far advanced in relation to their SAB approval process. Again, I have to emphasise that that's a separate process to the planning application process. We keep reiterating that, don't we, at Planning Committee? But I think the important element for members here today is, can a sustainable drainage system be put onto this site that not only deals with the sustainable drainage and deals with surface water, but it mitigates any potential flooding issues in the area. And I've already emphasised that there is betterment on that, and our flood and water management officers are fully content that this development is acceptable. Councillor Young also raised the issue about the number of takeaways, and can I give him a figure? Unfortunately, I can't give you a figure of what we've got in RHYL. I think the issue around again, going back to our planning policies and our guidance in relation to this, there isn't anything specific within your current local development plan which actually says there's a threshold over which we can't approve any further hot food takeaways or any further food and drink establishments. So I think it's just important to highlight yet again in relation to this application that food and drink uses are A3 uses. The existing site was a pub and restaurant, which is an A3 use, and the proposed McDonald's restaurant is an A3 use. So I just want to emphasise that I suppose statistically you're losing one A3 use and you're gaining an A3 use. So it sort of balances out in relation to this particular site. Councillor Kensler as well had just sort of wanted to emphasise the point about economic considerations versus environmental considerations. I mean, what I wasn't saying there is that the two are sort of mutually different. That what I'm saying is that with any planning application, there's always going to be those potential impacts for you. You're absolutely right to point out that there's huge environmental considerations here. But what I need to emphasise is that the applicant has gone through all those environmental considerations, and we haven't got any statutory objections from our technical experts on it. I think that was about it, Chair, really. I think it's key now for members, because we're gonna go back to the local members. The key here, and I might bring the legal officer in, is what reasons are you going to give to go against officer recommendation? And I can't put words in anyone's mouth here, but here in the debate, there are a couple of key areas that you've been focusing in. One is highways, and the local knowledge and the local input that you're going to put to the concerns that you've got about highway access and highway safety. That's a material consideration. That's fine. There's another material consideration that you've been raising there about the impact on ecology and the impact on trees. That's a material consideration. If local members and other members feel as though that's a reason for refusal that you want to put forward, that can be used. The issue around flooding and drainage, again, it's material planning consideration, but I'm just trying to emphasise to you what our technical experts have said on that issue as well. So I'll leave it there for now, Chair, but we will need to hone in on potentially what reasons you might be using. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I think.
Can I just come back on one issue there?
Oh, sorry, Mark, say it again.
Yeah, just quickly in response. So I think when residents and members raise concerns over flood risks, I don't think it is good enough that an application does come before us when it's nearly signed off. It should be signed off, and I understand they can say it doesn't need to be. I think good practice would be it is fully signed off, and Paul's confirmed that it's not, and I just want to make that point. Thank you.
Yeah, it's this battle we have with the SUDs and the SAB, isn't it? That it doesn't need to be able to give planning permission, even though logically, for a normal person's point of view, it should come before the planning permission. Yeah, no, that is, but it's not obviously something that we can have as a material consideration today. So local members, obviously, I wrote down when Councillor Richard spoke about the entrance and exit of the highways. And then you mentioned the well-being of residents and the ecology and trees, Gwynedd, Kensington. So if you can just really just nail down how many reasons you want to give for refusal. Obviously, you only need to have one reason. More reasons isn't necessarily better, and quite often it's not better. So just think about that as well. And then I'll bring in, well, actually, I'll bring in Jeanette first, and then I'll bring in Lee as the committee member.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. First of all, Tony Thomas, I'd like to address the thing it said about us not caring about jobs. Well, that isn't true, because I pointed out, yes, we do want the jobs, but there is many sites within RHYL that could have accommodated such a large fast food outlet, particularly on the Marina Quay. So I don't want anybody to think we don't want the jobs, because that isn't true, and I did state that. The other thing I want to say to Paul is, you should know that the Crown Bard was the tiniest little pub you've ever seen in your life. It was small, it was on the corner, and was not the whole of this huge site, because at the back of this retail park was a large copse. There is lots of trees, not just a few trees, a lot of trees. And it was also at the back of that, a big park and ride area was used by Denbighshire. It never was used, so it was closed, because the only use it had was travellers. So it has become a large area for wildlife and lots of trees. And the Crown Bard pub that was on the corner was very, very small. It was not a large building at all. Might have been 2-storey, but it was very, very small. This site is absolutely huge. The other thing I'm saying is no consideration to the properties right opposite the entrance and exit, because the lights of vehicles till late at night, and I believe it's 12 o'clock at night. What about the light from all the headlights going across the road to those properties? There's only a few hundred yards in between. So 2 lots of traffic on there. And when you're saying about this traffic reconfiguration, it's making the top just a small 2-lane traffic, but it's still going to be single traffic all the way down for Derwin. It's only going to actually split right by the roundabout itself. I just wish, members of planning, you could have had a site visit, because you would have seen that this area is a really large area that has been the source of all these trees, including what we've been noted on Facebook recently, the red kites, because it's so close to the river and the castle. Nothing's been said about all of that. These trees are a godsend to wildlife and birds, and not only that, but to the residents' health within that area. This McDonald's is in the wrong place when there is many areas within RHYL it could have been located. It's not even to the fact it could have been located on the back of the area where they could have used the retail park entrance. This traffic and this area, if you could see what I see every day of the junctions to these major roads, is absolutely appalling if this goes through. And I guarantee there's going to be many accidents. And I don't care what you say, Paul, this is not a good place for that sort of eatery when there is 5 or 6 just up the road as well. So please consider the main facts, which are the traffic over intensification and an already very, very busy main road into RHYL, the major road into RHYL, and the entrance on Ford Derwin being so close to nearby properties, the cars will feel as if they're coming through their front door. Ongoing flooding, you look at those pictures I sent you. You tell me how they can stop that. It was like the sea had come right up to the retail park and it flooded all of the Clwyd retail park. It's appalling. And then the light pollution, all those large lamps. I mean, you know, you're lighting up a whole area, whereas the lights from the retail park have been stopped by these massive, huge, wonderful trees. And the loss of the mature trees and wildlife goes against the grain, as Gwyneth has said. This is just, to cut all those trees down is just absolutely unforgivable. And please make note, our AM, MP and town council have all given, as well as many, many residents, objections. Please take that into account. I appeal to you to really think about this, and I just wish you would have been able to have a site visit, because you certainly wouldn't have agreed with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think with regards to site visit, I think all members are aware of the site. And I appreciate that it would have been something to have, but I think we're all aware of where we're at. Is quite a prominent part of the county. Okay, so Councillor Ellie-Chard, as committee member and as proposer, you just need to actually clarify the exact reasons.
Before I go on to the reasons, can I don't know whether anybody said anything, but if you were in the proposed site and you were driving out, you fed the kids and you fed yourself and there's no pots when you get home, just think about exiting the site and crossing over the traffic coming down from Rhuthun that is going into the Ford Derwin. That there will be accidents, and I do think it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad, but I will say again, I'm just very sad about that, and I will state I am against the following reasons.
Just turn your camera off, Ellie. Sorry, just so we're really clear.
All right, sorry.
You've gone on mute rather than turning your camera off.
You can tell I'm nervous today.
All right.
Just to say, I'm against the application for the following reasons: the entrance exit, the well-being of our residents due to the increase of traffic, the loss of wildlife and future obesity in our community. Hope that's enough reasons. Okay, Joe.
Yeah, I'll just bring in the legal officer, but yeah, they seem to be okay. The obesity one with well-being.
Yep, thank you, Chair. Just to echo what's been said previously, and the only matters that you take into account, nothing more, nothing less, are indeed relevant material planning considerations, and a departure from that. So in the event of going against officer recommendation, there needs to be care to ensure that there are valid reasons with a contrary view. In the event of defective reasoning, of course, there runs the risk of well, in the event of an appeal, costs being awarded against the planning authority.
And we shouldn't be blackmailed by that. And remember the safe routes to school as well.
Yes.
We let the legal officer speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's the legal officer speaking. It's not planning officers. He's just informing us of the legal reasons that we need to have good valid planning reasons.
And there have been some good planning material consideration reasons discussed for both for and against. It's just really to remind members to ensure that you only take those into account when you make the decision. That's all, and the risks arising from a departure from that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go to the vote. We've had the debate, we've got the reasons. So it will be 4 if you want to vote in accordance with officer recommendation to grant the application. It will be against, to go against officer recommendation and along with the reasons for refusal stated, or abstain. So 3 options. And again, we'll go through the members. So Councillor Ellie Chard.
Against.
Councillor Ann Davis. Haven't got you. And
Against.
Councillor Councillor Alan James, sorry.
4.
Councillor Brian Jones.
4.
Councillor Tina Jones.
4.
Councillor Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kensler.
O blaid. Sorry, yn erbyn.
Okay.
Yn erbyn y cais.
Against and erbyn, okay. Councillor Christine Marston.
4. Sorry, delay.
Councillor Mervyn Parry.
Against.
Against, yeah.
Against, yes. And erbyn, yeah, against.
Councillor Pete Prendergast.
Against.
Councillor Peter Scott.
4.
Councillor Tony Thomas.
4.
Councillor Julian Thompson Hill.
4.
Councillor Joe Welch, 4. And Councillor Mark Young.
Sorry, against.
Okay.
Oh, Joe, I think you've missed Emrys.
Emrys Wyn. Sorry, I missed Cynghorydd Emrys Wyn. Cynghorydd Emrys Wyn. Thumbs down. So an erbyn. I don't think it actually makes, it doesn't make a difference, but no, it was Hugh Hilditch. That's fine. That was Cynghorydd Emrys Wyn. Sorry, I told you I always miss one out. Right, we have 8 votes for and we have 7 votes against. Therefore, that application has been granted in accordance with officer recommendation. Okay, it is 11:20. We're going to have a very short break, please. Really, really short, like literally 5 minutes, please, because I know we've got quite a few things to get going with, but if we just have a very short break and we'll then carry on, okay? So back as soon as you can. We'll probably start before 11:30, okay?
I'll just put my video on. Can I have a point of order?
Yes.
I believe that one of our voting members at the last application, and I do know the application off heart, wasn't there for the whole debate. So it's a point of order. I will say it was Councillor Julian Thompson Hill. Okay. So I don't know if people want to look into it. Point of order. Okay.
All right, thank you.
And I don't know whether legal can help me. I don't know. Okay, I'm just gonna.
Yeah,
I'm a bit upset. Okay, I'm gonna enjoy my coffee, but I am here.
Okay. No, they did that. Julian, are you there? Have you got any comment on that? Just. Yeah. So we just have to remember we are being webcast now. So. Okay, well, we can take that up. It's a member's decision as to whether they feel that they can vote. I think it's up to them. He's obviously decided that he could vote, and it's possibly something to take up outside the meeting now.
Yeah.
Just for clarification, had he not voted, it would have been 7-7, and with the chair's vote, I voted for it, so it wouldn't have made a huge difference. Obviously, if there was another member, for example, if Bob Murray had been there at the end, then it would have made a difference as well. So it was very, very close. But that's just my initial comment on that. And perhaps we can, what I would do is I'd send that in an email to Tim Dillon and copying in Paul Mead and myself, if you'd like, and copying in Julian as well. And then obviously Julian can possibly defend himself as to whether he took part in the whole debate or not. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, but as I had the casting vote, it would have been 7-7. Oh, Julian's there now. Julian, did you hear that, Julian? You're
sorry,
on
just come off mute. Sorry, I've only just got back. No, I haven't heard anything until then. Sorry.
Okay, Councillor Ellichard has said that you shouldn't have voted in the as a point of order. You shouldn't have voted on the last item as you weren't there for the entire debate.
I was actually there for the whole debate. I mightn't have had my camera on for the whole debate, but I was actually there for the whole debate.
Okay,
I heard it all.
There we go. Okay, we're not discussing that any further anymore because we've got other items. Any other discussion around that and the vote needs to be taken off the planning committee, and that's that. Okay, so we're moving on to agenda item 8. It's on page 147 of the agenda. The ward is RHYL South. The ward members are Councillors Brian Blakely, Councillor Brian Jones, Councillor Cheryl Williams. The application is 45/2020/0844/PF. The proposal is the alteration and adaptation of existing nursing home to include extension of 2 additional bedrooms on the first floor, 2 fire escape stair enclosures and entrance canopy. The location is Sandy Lodge, 83 DYSERTH Road, RHYL, LL18 4DT. I'm going to bring in Councillor Brian Jones at this point.
Thank you, Chair. I've left my camera on. If it starts to distort, I know you'll pull me up and I'll switch it off. This particular application, I've got my 2 fellow ward councillors with me here this morning, Councillor Brian Blakely and Councillor Cheryl Williams. We've had a number of discussions with residents. There's quite a big resident group that have got concerns about these applications, and so I would like to propose, it is referred to in this particular planning application pack, that there's another planning application that's coming along, and I would like to propose that this application is deferred and both applications are heard together, because hearing them together, the planning committee will get a better appreciation of what the applications are about, and not to hear one and another one. So this is deferred today, and if you will allow, Chair, my fellow ward councillors would probably want to support me on that.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Peter Scott, thank you. Do officers, obviously we're not going to enter any debate, but I'll just see if officers want to comment on that before we go to the vote on it.
No, I mean, all I will say is that there is a second application that's under consideration at this particular site, and we're just awaiting for additional information on that. But the 2 development proposals stand alone, really. They're not reliant on each other, so it shouldn't mean that we can't determine the planning application that's before you today. But obviously, the request for a deferral has come in, and I think we just need to take a vote on that. So I'm happy to do that, Chair.
Okay, so we're going to go to the vote on it. We're not going to have any discussion. We've had a reason. We've had a proposer and a seconder, and I'll try to remember everyone on the list again. So we've got Councillor. So it's going to be 4 to defer it, or against if you don't want to defer it, or you can obviously abstain. So 3 options. Councillor Ellichard.
4.
Councillor Ann Davis. You're on mute, Anne.
4.
Councillor Brian Jones.
4.
Dina Jones.
4.
Cynghorydd Gwyneth Kenza di Mynd. Councillor Christine Marston.
4.
Councillor Alan James. I forgot you.
4.
It's because you're in a different order. Councillor Bob Murray has left, and he obviously won't be returning, I don't think, no. Councillor Mervyn Parry.
4.
Councillor Pete Prendergast.
4.
Councillor Peter Scott.
4.
Councillor Tony Thomas.
4.
Councillor Julian Thompson-Hill.
4.
Councillor Joe Welch. 4. Cynghorydd Emily Swyn. We can't hit. Yeah, thumbs up for obliged to defer. Councillor Mark Young.
Or I think you got everyone's share.
We did. I'm just counting up the votes. Check we core it. Yeah, we got 14 for, no against, and no abstains. Okay, so that agenda item has been deferred. So we're moving on straight away to agenda item number 9, which is on page 161 of your reports. The ward is South St Asaph East. The ward member is Councillor Andrew Thomas. The application number 46/2020/0850/PF. The proposal is the conversion of existing building to form 7 self-contained flats and associated works. The location is the Chapel 2 GEMIG Street, St Asaph, LL17 ORY. The applicant is Mr. Gregory Swain Hughes to CAPEL Developments Limited. The recommendation is to grant. We do have a public speaker on this, we will hear that first before we go into any debate. Just one little very brief thing. If you got the very first report pack, page 163 had the wrong map on it, which is why you were then sent by Kath Jones as separate, the whole planning again, and it was just because the map had changed. So if you're looking at page 163 and you're looking at 83 Sandy Lodge, Dyserth Road, RHYL, it's because you haven't uploaded the latest version, so that's where you will see the map will be on the latest version on the planning portal. Okay, so Mr. Gregory Swain Jones, you will have 3 minutes to address the committee. As I've said to I'm not sure whether you were here when I said, but we are very strict on the 3 minutes. So if you've got a watch or a stopwatch or something, just to time yourself, because you will be cut off after 3 minutes. Okay, so when you're ready, you can address the committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Good morning. I hope you're all keeping well in the challenging times and are feeling some positivity about the easing of lockdown and hopefully some much needed sunshine on the way. Thank you for allowing me the chance to speak this morning. My name is Gregory Swain Hughes and I was born in St Asaph and raised in Rhuthun, now residing in Bodlewyddan. I have strong local connections to St Asaph with many friends and family in the local area. I previously worked in the civil aviation industry for 16 years until recently, where I decided to pursue this opportunity in what we believe is a fantastic project supporting regeneration in the local area, providing much needed housing, all whilst restoring an historical building in the city centre. Prior to acquiring this property, we wanted to ensure that we went through the right channels within the local planning authority and engaged early on with the conservation officer, as we knew that retaining the original features of this Grade 2 listed building would be central to the success of the scheme. It was following these discussions that careful consideration was given to the project, and the result of this is the proposal presented to you today. We are very mindful of the parking situation in this lower area of St Asaph, this being the reason we have maximised off-road parking for each unit, which will be achieved by reclaiming some of the bank currently located to the southeast of the site, mentioned in your reports. We welcome the support already provided by the Highways Officer in relation to this aspect of the proposed development, citing the sustainable location, nearby public car parks and former use of the building. Furthermore, since Highways approval, we have reduced the number of bedrooms in 2 units, which further alleviates demand on parking. It is worth noting that there have also been several positive contributions and support for the scheme by local residents, who are keen to see this dilapidated building repurposed and restored. In relation to the proposed regeneration of this building, we welcome the proposal to grant planning permission from the officer, with support from consultees, namely Conservation, Highways, Ecology, Strategic Housing and the City Council. I would like to conclude by saying how privileged we feel to have the opportunity to restore the history and character of this fantastic building, whilst ensuring that it does not remain vacant and unloved for any longer. Having the opportunity to bring high quality residential dwellings to the heart of the city centre and provide much needed footfall to support the local businesses is a positive addition to St Asaph. We look forward to receiving your support and backing, and thank you very much for listening this morning.
Okay, I don't think the local member is here, Councillor Andrew Thomas, but obviously there is another St Asaph resident, councillor who I know has raised his hand, so I'll bring in Councillor Peter Scott first.
Yeah, that's the reason I raised my hand, Chair,
So.
being a member of St Asaph as well. Thanks very much for letting me talk on Andrew's behalf. As it says in the brief, the City Council has no objection to this redevelopment of it, as being called, and it's an eyesore site. Again, we only have.
Might just need you.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry, Joe. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's
yeah.
For everyone. I don't know why.
Have you got what I'm set up to now? Or you,
yeah, no, carry on.
Okay, thank you. Our only worries are the parking facilities in Gemic Street. I took the opportunity to drive down Gemic Street yesterday, and you can't get down Gemic Street without driving on the footpath on the right, because there's always cars parked down on the left-hand side. But having said that, in the notes we have, page 195, going on to 196, they have allowed for 7 parking spaces on site, which is very good, keep people off Gemic Street altogether. The site, the brief does allow for 10 spaces because of the way there's 3 double apartments and I think there's 4 singles, whatever, but it does allow for 10 people, but they've made 7 spaces. So having no objection, if possible, and I think it's written somewhere, but just to confirm, if we could have the condition that there was only 1 car per apartment, which would be 7, that would keep traffic off the road. If we could have that as a condition within, within the passing of the requirements, that would be good. And I would like to propose that we pass it with that condition added to the brief, Chair. Thank you. If that's okay.
Okay, thank you. Are you seconding that, Mark Young? Okay, thank you. And would you like to speak on the item, Councillor Mark Young?
No, I was going to propose, but I'm happy to second. Excellent application.
Thank you. Officers are just going to come in on that, because obviously you've just added something to it.
Yeah, I think just for clarity here, and obviously we've still got Mike Parker here from a highways perspective. I think the proposal is for 7 car parking spaces to be made available on the site. The problem with trying to impose then conditions on the number of cars that could ever visit the site or ever turn up at the site, if you've got a person that's living there and a relative comes to stay or whatever, and there's another car, we couldn't enforce there only ever being 7 cars visiting the property. So while 7 car parking spaces are being made available, it may be that there's going to be more cars that turn up at this site on a regular basis, and that might put increased pressure on parking in the area. I think what members have to decide here, having regard to our highway engineers and the fact that there are areas of public car parking in St Asaph, that we're looking at the proposal as acceptable on the basis that 7 car parking spaces are to be provided. My planning advice to members here is that we couldn't then impose a planning condition that restricts additional cars turning up and visiting the property. I hope that's clear. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Joe, I understand that point, that there will be visitors. I was only trying to make a condition that each apartment had the facility for 1 car. That was all. I understand there would be other cars visiting and there'd be people down on the car park at the bottom. It was just to try and say that each apartment would have 1 car, so there would be 7 cars parked off road. That was all it was about, Joe. Thank you.
Basically each flat has a car parking space allocated to them, yeah, and numbered or something like that. Yeah, Paul Griffin's just going to come in.
Yep, Florida. Just a quick one. Can we clarify? We're not actually trying to condition how many cars occupants have. It's just that we can be certain that 1 space is allocated to each flat, so we could potentially condition that. The wording should be that, a parking management arrangement should condition provided and agreed, and that way we can ensure that 1 apartment doesn't take over 3 of the spaces, forcing other people out. Is that correct?
Exactly that, Joe. Thank you very much, Paul. Yes, exactly that.
Yeah, because you don't want the first house to be occupied and saying we need 3 spaces and then it's leaving none for the ones that get taken last. Okay, that all seems clear. Everyone happy with that? Okay, we will go to the vote. Everyone's still exhausted from the last one, I think. Okay, but that does seem clear, and we're happy with that. We've got good reasons for all those, so we will go to the vote. Same, it will be 4 to go to grant in accordance with officer recommendation, against to go against officer recommendation, and abstain obviously is your third option. So we will go Councillor Ellichard.
For.
Councillor Ann Davis.
For.
Councillor Alan James.
For.
Councillor Brian Jones.
For.
Councillor Tina Jones.
For.
Councillor Christine Marston.
For.
Councillor Mervyn Parry.
For.
Paul Pennington hasn't joined us, has he? He said he may later on, but I don't think so. No. Councillor Pete Prendergast.
For.
Councillor Peter Scott.
For.
Councillor Tony Thomas. Tony, you're on mute if you are there. We won't hold on long. Okay, we'll just take that as no vote. Councillor Julian Thompson-Hill.
Yep, for.
Councillor Joe Welch, for. Cynghorydd Emrys Wyn.
O blaid.
Diolch. And Councillor Mark Young.
For, and good luck.
1, 2, 3. Hopefully that's everyone. If I haven't called your name out, shout now. 14, yeah. Oh yeah, Tony didn't yet. So we've got 13 to grant permission, no against and no abstains for that one. So that has been granted in accordance with officer recommendation. And yeah, good luck. So that was agenda item number 9. So we're moving on to agenda item number 10, which is on page 201 of your reports. The ward is Tremechion. The ward member is Councillor Christine Marston. The application number is 47/2020/0593/PF. The proposal is the development of land to form holiday park, including the conversion of existing clubhouse to form reception building, erection of new clubhouse building, bunkhouse building, 7 holiday pod accommodation units. Cause no full stops in this. 23 2-bedroom holiday lodges, 7 3-bedroom lodges, and 7 4-bedroom lodges. Oh, there it is. Works to existing access, formation of internal pathways, 2 wildlife ponds, parking, landscaping, and associated works. The location is former RHYL Rugby Club, Wine Road, Rydlan, RHYL. And I will just go to the local member in the first instance, just before we have any of the speakers.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to request that we defer this application in light of the late information published yesterday evening, in particular the Welsh Government receiving a call-in request and having served an Article 18 direction which holds the local planning authority from granting planning permission for this application. I feel this is a valid reason to ask for a deferral from committee. Thank you.
Okay, do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Ann Davis, thank you. I'll just bring in the officers. I know it was a very last minute thing that we got thrown at us yesterday, wasn't it? So I'll just bring in Paul Mead anyway.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's only really just to refer members to the information that was on the blue sheet, really, which just gives a bit of clarity about what an Article 18 direction is and what Planning Committee can and can't do today in relation to that. But as you say, we're not going to go into the debate. The request for the deferral has come forward, so I think we can go to the vote on that. But I just wanted to make sure that members were clear that we had noted that on the blue sheet. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we've had a proposer and a seconder. We're obviously not having any debate about this, so we'll go to the vote. It'll be 4 to defer, against if you want to hear the debate today, or abstains. Councillor Ellichard.
For.
Councillor Ann Davis.
For.
Councillor Brian Jones.
For.
Councillor Alan James.
For.
Councillor Tina Jones.
For.
Councillor Christine Marston.
For.
Councillor Mervyn Parry.
For.
Councillor Pete Prendergast.
For.
Councillor Peter Scott.
For.
Councillor Tony Thomas.
For.
Councillor Julian Thompson-Hill.
4.
Councillor Joe Welch, 4. Cynghorydd Emrys Swyn.
4 blaid.
And Councillor Mark Young.
4.
That should be 14. So that's 14 agreeing to defer, no against, no abstains. Therefore, that application has been deferred. We've got 2 items left. The next one is agenda item 6, and it's in my ward. So my worthy Vice Chair is taking over for this agenda item. So I'll pass you over to Councillor Alan James, who'll run us through this one.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, this is agenda item number 6. The code is 23/20/0101. The location is Avon, Llanrhaeadr, Denbigh, and the proposal is a variation of condition numbers 2 and 3 of Outline Planning Commission Code number 23/2018/0268 to allow a further 2 years for the submission of reserved matters. And I'll call in the local member, Joe, if you want to just give us a brief overview.
Yeah, I think officers might want to come in as well,
Yeah.
but I can probably, I think some of us who've been on the committee for a few years now, since 2018, will have been on the committee when we actually heard this one. And I think officers will probably want to come in at the end, but the officers suggested that we should have refused this in 2018. The committee went against officers' recommendation to grant it, and it had to be done within 3 years partly because of the COVID pandemic and things. They've asked for a further 2 years, which I think would have been reasonably straightforward had officers said that we should have granted it in the first place. So the reason it's come to committee is obviously from an officer's point of view, the whole application goes against what they've suggested. I would, however, as I suggested that we grant it in the first place 3 years ago, I would still be proposing that we allow this extra 2 years. You know, the COVID pandemic has obviously had quite a big impact on people being able to view sites for houses and things like that. So I think it would be okay if we just granted the extra two years. That's really what they're looking for. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Mark Young, you want to?
Yeah. No, I think I proposed this last time when it did go through. So this application has been approved by this committee, and I believe it's absolutely reasonable, the request, and I'm happy to second Joe Welch, talking about.
Okay, thanks very much. Do officers want to come in? Do you want to come in, Paul, and add anything to it?
No, not really. I think Joe summed it up pretty well. I mean, you know, from a planning officer perspective, as I've said before, we have to go with the rules and regulations in your planning policies and guidance. We recommended refusal previously, therefore we really have to recommend refusal again now. We understand the reasoning given by Joe. I guess we need to just bring the legal officer in just to make sure if you're going against officer recommendation, we've got the clear reasons. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, so we've had a few little technical discussions here, so I've got to call the vote out, which is going to be.
Sorry, Chair, just before we go to the vote, you probably just missed my last comment there. I guess from a legal perspective, just for the record, we probably need a reason to go against officer recommendation, in relation to this, just for the record. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think it'll be the same as in 2018, where I think it was considered to be the officers obviously suggested it should be outside any settlement, but obviously there are some houses around, so I felt it was in keeping with the area and more of an infill of a site.
Okay, so are we happy to go?
Still the same reason.
Yeah, so it's the same.
We've got the same reasons. Yep. Okay, so we're happy to go to the vote now, are we? Yep. Okay, so if I call the names out, if anybody, when we get to the end, like Joe said, if we missed anybody, then give me a shout. So I'll start off with Councillor Welch.
For.
Councillor Richard. Councillor Ann Davis.
Oh.
Councillor Brian Jones.
Oh.
So was that 4? Councillor Tina Jones.
Oh.
Councillor Christine Marston.
4.
Councillor Alan James, 4. Councillor Mervyn Parry.
4.
Councillor Peter Prendergast.
4.
Councillor Peter Scott.
4.
Councillor Tony Thomas. Not here.
4.
Oh, 4, sorry. Councillor Julian Thompson Hill. 4.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Emery Swin.
Obliged.
Thank you. And Councillor Mark Young.
4.
We 14. Yeah. Okay, well, that's been carried. That's 14. There's no abstentions and no against. So thanks very much for that. And I'll pass you back to Joe.
Thank you very much. All right. Okay, so we've got just the last agenda item. This is just a report to Planning Committee. The lead member is Councillor Mark Young, and the report author is Carsten Busch, who I think is here with us today, who I'll bring in a moment. It's about the Welsh Government document Future Wales, the National Plan 2040. The recommendations are that members note the content, so this isn't to have a large debate about it. It's more to just hear what the planning officers have to say, and then we will just note it. And any discussion or anything else can happen outside of the planning committee, okay? Unless anyone's got anything extremely pressing they want to speak about. Okay, so Carsten, do you want to come in now?
Chair, I'm not... Sorry.
Yep, we can hear you.
You can hear me. I'm not sure whether the lead member would like to say some words at the start, or whether he wants me to start.
I think the chair's covered it, and I'll hand it over to you, Carsten, into your capable hands. Diolch yn fawr.
Okay, thank you very much. Bore da, pnawn da, members. Well, what I would like to do to focus on just 3 points briefly in the next few minutes. I would like to say that there are additional information on the item available via the papers and the presentation that went to the strategic planning group in March 2021. So if somebody would like to have more background information, please look at this. What is Future Wales? Future Wales is a Welsh Government document. That means that the document has been prepared, published by Welsh Government, and it's going to be reviewed by them. It's prepared for decision making in the local planning authority and for plan preparation. It's their spatial strategy for addressing key national priorities and challenges, and look on how planning system can support this. Beyond the strictly planning element, it also gives an indication where Welsh Government is to focus any actions and investments over the next 19 years. What you've got in front of us in terms of Future Wales is the finalized version. We took part in the public consultation event in November 2019. The link between Planning Policy Wales and the local development plan, every member of planning committee will be aware that all planning applications have to be determined in accordance with the adopted plan unless material consideration indicates otherwise. What does Planning Policy Wales Edition 11 does is it states that Future Wales, the National Plan 2040, is part of a statutory development plan for the county. That means that when we talk about the development plan for Denbighshire County Council, we are now talking about the Denbighshire Local Development Plan and Future Wales. So it's not one plan, it's 2 now. What does Planning Policy Wales? It principally sets out what development plans and decisions must achieve and how development should be shaped to achieve the planning possible. It's the what and how in planning. Whereas if we look to development plans, that's then where development should take place. We have national planning policy set out in planning policy rails, in the technical advice notes, and in the policy clarification letters. And if we go to the development plan, we have a clear hierarchy of, at the national level, the national development plan. We will get a regional level in 1 or 2 years with a strategic development plan, and at a local level, we will have the local development plan. So it's important to notice that the NDF and the LDP are, in planning legislative terms, are the plan, and national policy PPW, it's a material consideration. Okay, are there any questions from members on this matter we want to address? Or
no, I think we're happy to just note the report, and I think it has come to strategic planning group. Obviously, you're all on a MAG and you're all represented by a strategic planning group member, but you also do get the information in emails as well. But if you're not quite sure, then either email Carsten or email your strategic planning group member if you know who that is on your MAG, and that's that. Right. Thank you very much for that, Carsten. We are ending the meeting and we'll end the webcast. It's I said it was 12. I'd aimed for 12 and it's 12:02. Oh well, there we go. Right, have a good afternoon everyone, and I'll see you next month. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, people.